Welcome to Feel Good Fridays here on the NECAT Network, where we discuss people and things that make us feel good right here in Nashville. I'm your host, Cameron McCaslin, and joining me today for a discussion is Larry Underwood, better known here in Nashville as legendary horror host Dr. Gangrene, whose television program, Dr. Gangrene Sanitarium, airs on the NECAT Network Arts Channel 9 every Saturday at 9 p.m. This weekend, he will be spotlighted in a special presentation of Dr. Gangrene's Halloween Marathon, showcasing episodes from his 20-plus years career here in television. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. I feel like right out the gate, we should kind of let the audiences know that we're old friends. We've actually been making stuff together for quite a while now, and I'm really excited to be doing this weekend and kind of kicking off the marathon on Feel Good Friday. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see this weekend?
So I do a horror host program where I introduce horror movies as my character, Dr. Gangrene, Physician of Fright. So we're going to see a selection of shows over the 20 plus years that I've been hosting movies in the Nashville market.
Very good. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of specifically what we're going to see, but let's talk a little bit about how your career got started. What led you to make a TV show in the first place?
So that kind of goes back to what I was doing before I started doing a TV show, which was writing and drawing comic books. I was an art major in college, so I was always into comic books. And I was running my own comic book company with a guy named Chuck Angel, and had a new kid born. I wound up moving. I came to Hendersonville from Nashville, moved up the road to Hendersonville. And after my son got a little older, we kind of had to stop doing the comic books for a while because they're so labor intensive. Any of you out there who have ever worked in comic books know how labor intensive panel to panel art is. And so we just couldn't do it. And, but after a while I was getting bored. I was ready to do something else creative. And I met a guy who had a cable access TV show in Hendersonville. His name was Jack Wood. He wound up putting his show on in Nashville for a little bit. It's called The Static Show. He had this character named Stanley Static, and it was this crazy show. And I would tune into it on Channel 3, and I was like, wow, this is fun. Well, it turns out the guy lived about 2 blocks up the road from me. And so we became friends. And one day he was dropping off something over at the house, and I'll tell you what it was. It was a box of old, you remember the models, what are the monster models? The Aurora Models.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He made a bunch of those, but he sprayed. Well, it was not the Auroras, but it was the re-release.
Yeah.
Of, Auroras, the Polar Lights collections. He had bought all of those and glued them together, but he spray painted them gold for some reason. So he dropped off this whole box of these figures. I thought, no, I'm sorry, that happened later. I'm sorry. He was coming by for something to give me something. I don't know. I think maybe that happened. Anyway, I'm getting mixed up here. But at any rate, Jack said, I'm doing this TV show, blah, blah, blah. And I was asking him a lot of questions about it. And he said, you want to do this, don't you? And I said, oh, man, I don't think I have time. He said, yeah, you should. I think you'd be good at it. And that kind of sparked it in my mind. I started thinking about it for a while. And I called Chuck up and I said, Chuck, I think I know what our next creative venture is going to be. And he said, what's that? And I said, I think we're going to make a TV show. He went, what? And I said, yeah. And immediately I wanted to do this horror host show. It's the only kind of show that interested me. When I was a kid, Sir Cecil Creep was our horror host in the Nashville area. And I wanted to do a show like that. Nobody was doing one on TV. And I thought it would be kind of fun to do, to host movies like that. So that's what kind of led me to the horror host show to begin with, meeting a guy who had a cable access show, him talking me into cable access, and then having a partner who was willing to be on the other side of the camera from me.
That's pretty interesting. I think me and Chuck were actually friends before me and you really became friends. But to tell the story of kind of how I found your show for the first time, because I think it's funny, was I want to say it was 2002 or 2003, and I had not been in Nashville too terribly long, but I was up late one night. It was around, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure if it was on Access at the time or if it was running over on the WB, but I saw the show and thought it was just the zaniest thing that I had ever seen in my life. And for the next couple of weeks, I started watching it, and you guys were running a thing saying, hey, we're going to be at this haunted house in Hendersonville. And at the time, I was working at a video store at the Rivergate Mall. So I made a point to go over after work one night and meet you guys, and kind of became fast friends with Chuck, and we started making a movie together, which ultimately just totally never really went anywhere. But then after that, me and you became friends, and kind of started working together. I did some stuff on the show, and and all that. And I feel like that just happened, and I look back and I go, oh, that's 17, 18 years ago now.
Yeah.
Since I started. So it's pretty wild because I look back this week when we were kind of putting all this stuff together for the marathon, all of the earliest stuff in the show, and how much better you guys got. Pretty quick, and comparatively to right now, the thing that's going to run right after this episode of Feel Good Friday is the very first episode of Chiller Cinema. And you used to wear a prosthetic on your face. Tell me a little bit about why that choice, and why did it go away?
I'm not exactly sure why I went with that. It was this scar prosthetic on half of my face. Other than I just thought I needed to look scary, and I found this prosthetic, so I used it. I think it was actually probably a Phantom of the Opera is what it's probably intended for. It was half, scars up, but use that in the first however many episodes. It went away because it was a pain in the butt to put that thing on all the time, using spirit gum and sticking it to my face and cleaning it off. Like, man, this thing's for the birds. Plus, I had by that time probably, certainly discovered Zachary, the horror host. Zachary is the greatest horror host of all time. He didn't have anything on his face. Sir Cecil didn't have anything on his face. I don't know. I just felt like it was an unnecessary and troublesome crutch, so I just got rid of it. Actually wrote it out in a story in one of the episodes.
Yeah, I remember seeing that where, much later, because I kind of went back and watched all the stuff whenever, just as a fan of the show, say, because there was a couple years there before I was working on it all. I just kind of watched you guys, and, just watching what you were doing, watching what Chuck was doing, just kind of keeping up with all of that. But I always thought it was really interesting that you kind of took a moment in the show to change it up, and kind of keep going from there. The show got so much better so quickly, and it's kind of funny if you watch the very first episode and then you watch the most recent episode of your Sanitarium show, the drastic contrast between, there's technical stuff, obviously, HD cameras versus the shot on video look and all this other stuff, but just you got so much better as an actor. It's like you kind of figured out who that character was. Can you talk a little bit about that at all, about how that's kind of developed over the years?
Yeah, I guess that's just from just practice. It's being in front of the camera. You do something long enough, you're going to get better at it, I think. And for sure, like you said, the technological side of things, man, when we started, we were shooting with a little VHS-C camera, and we didn't have computer editing at that point. This was in 1999 is when I started. So I was editing between two VCRs, hit play, hit record. If you mess up, you back up a little bit further, record a little bit over what you had before, and hope, fingers crossed, you hit the mark this time. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting more comfortable in front of the camera, both with yourself and also writing better scripts. As a writer, I think I grew. I think that is also part of it. And in the early part, we ad-libbed everything. It started out complete ad-libbing, and then it went to loose scripts where I would write, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And then it evolved into fully scripted episodes where everything's scripted and there's a teleprompter.
Can you tell me the story again? And I've heard it countless times at this point, but just for the audience at home, how did you take on the name Dr. Gangrene?
Oh yeah, that's pretty funny. When I called Chuck and said, we're going to do this show, he said, okay, that's fine. I started thinking about, okay, well, what kind of set do I want? And what will my name of my character be? Blah, blah, blah. So I was brainstorming, couldn't come up with anything. And it just was having the hardest time. But I work in a hospital in Nashville. And this was in 1999. Like I said, the show ER was super popular at the time. And so I was getting stopped a couple of times a week by people in the hall, and they would say, you look like that guy on ER. And the guy they're talking about was Anthony Edwards, who played Dr. Green on ER. So Dr. Green, Dr. Gangrene. It was just kind of a play on words off of Dr. Green. It fit perfect. I thought, we'll have a twisted medical doctor, so a twist on the name, and it all sort of fit.
So with Chiller Cinema, you guys kind of had a cult hit on your hands. It took not too long from when you took it from Hendersonville down to Nashville, and then it kind of spread nationally just because you guys were sending it out to other public access stations. And I know you got some great magazine coverage and newspaper coverage back when that was still, something to write home about. Talk to me a little bit about how that morphed from that half-hour public access show to whenever you moved over to start doing the 2-hour creature feature show.
Right. So yeah, we ran it Chiller Cinema in Nashville, like you said, and then I started sending it to other cities, to Atlanta, to Greenville, North Carolina, just different places. Greenville ran a marathon, a 24-hour marathon one time, which was really cool. It's not going to compare to this marathon, which is going to be 60 hours. Amazing. But yes, Gangreneville. But at some point, I wanted to get it onto the regular TV. I thought that's where Sir Cecil was. I'll get a wider audience. So I at first bought some late night airtime and actually sold commercials to pay for that. I did it with the half-hour show and was putting that on for a while, and then I took it back off, and then I put it back. At first, it was on UPN for a while, and then I took it off, and then, so it was on UPN for a while, and I took it back off. Memory's kind of fuzzy. It's been a while. At some point, I called over to the WB station, and I asked to speak to the program director. And the guy answered, and I told him who I was. Well, it just so happened that he was the guy at UPN at that time that was doing playback late night when my show aired. He was the one that was actually putting those VHS tapes in and hitting play. And he remembered my show. He said, "Dude, I love your show. You need to come in here. Let's talk." So I did. And we talked for a while, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's put the show on. Let's give it a new name, though. Chiller Cinema's been on for a while, but let's do something brand new." So thought about it and decided, why not Creature Feature? That's what Sir Cecil's show was called. It'd be a nice tribute to Sir Cecil. So I had Dr. Gangrene's Creature Feature on. Well, it was the WB 58 Creature Feature, and then it became the CW 58 Creature Feature. And that was a 2-hour show, and they had a movie package that let me pick what I wanted to show out of their package, and got to host some great movies over there. Movies like Total Recall and The Wraith and The House That Dripped Blood, and some real dogs like Phoenix the Warrior and Aerobicide and Future Force and Future Zone. Those were a lot of fun, actually. But yeah, it was a good time.
Do you think the bad movies sometimes work better than the good movies?
Absolutely.
For what
Absolutely. You're the good movies are kind of like holy grails. You kind of don't like. I always wanted to host an Amicus film. They're my favorite movies. And what was funny is I actually called up the program director and said, "Hey, listen, Mike, if you ever see a movie called The House That Dripped Blood, let me know, because we are airing on it was actually Peter Cushing's birthday. He and Christopher Lee's birthday are a day apart. And I said, if you ever see that movie, it has both of them in it. And our show airs late night from Cushing's birthday into Lee's birthday. It would be amazing if that movie were available." And sure enough, it turned up on the list. And he said, "Hey, remember that movie you wanted me to find?" I went, "What movie?" He said, "The House That Dripped Blood." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I got it." It's like, "Oh, no way." So we aired that. But with movies like that you really love, you don't want to mess with them too much. You don't want to make fun of them too much, because it's like Svengoolie is showing the Universal package right now. And if I were to host, say, The Wolfman, it's such a beloved movie. You can't make fun of it too much. But if you show something like Future Force, it's got David Carradine with a glove that flies off his hand and flies around punching people. Well, come on, you can have fun with that.
Right. So I know kind of right there with Creature Features, that's kind of where I came into the mix again. Like it went from Chuck. There were some people that worked on the show, uh, kind of in between, and and you could run down some of those people if you want to, just to kind of name some of the people who've contributed over the years. Mike Cook, I
Oh,
know we've been talking about, the program director over at the WB and the CW. Chuck Angel, of course, who co-created the show with you. Who else kind of worked on these programs over the years?
Brian Hickman worked on it a lot with me. He ran camera for me a lot. Let's see, Ethan Black worked with me. Linda Wiley and Brandon Lunday played sidekick characters for me. Brandon was Oogsley, my character for a while, and then Linda became my nurse, Nurse Monique, for a while, and then I'm just trying to think. It's various people would come and go. Paul Browning did a sidekick named Lump, Otto von Lump, for a while, and had a lot of sidekick characters. They're fun. Gives me somebody to kind of play off of, and so yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, so I know from there that's kind of where, and again, I'm kind of just walking through all the hot points at this, this point in the show. But I know we did like the Go Green with Dr. Gangrene PSA series, which we did pretty well with. From there, we did Dreadful Halloween special, and then over into Dr. Gangrene Presents. Can you kind of walk through that portion of it and tell me kind of what you remember from any of those things?
So yeah, the Dreadful Halloween special was fun. I think it was 2010, right?
It was 2010.
Yeah, and I became friends with another horror host named Penny Dreadful, who hosts in the New England area, right up Boston, New England area, right outside Salem. And she, great horror host and a good friend, and she and her husband at the time, Magoo or Guru is what he goes by. His name's Magoo. He passed away now, but the two of them had a TV show, and she and I became friends. And in the course of just back and forth emails, I pitched the idea to her. I think it's like, why don't we do something together? Why don't we do a project together? And she was 100% on board. And so the way we did it is it was a co-writing thing. I wrote part of it and sent it to her, and then she would write the next chunk and send it back to me. And we just bounced it back and forth like that until we got a script that we both liked. And it was Dr. Gangrene and Penny Dreadful Save Halloween is basically the plot of that one. And it was fun. We shot our host bits here with Cameron, and they shot theirs there. And then I put it all together, did all the editing on it, and it turned out pretty good. Dr. Gangrene Presents, that TV show. So at the time we were on the CW, the WB became the CW while we were on the air. And that was kind of weird to change for your station to change names mid-show, but we just kept rolling with it. But at some point along the line, Mike called me and said, "Hey, I've got bad news. The movie package is going to go away. The station's dropping their package of films. So, I'm sorry if you guys have other content you want to run." And so we thought about it, and Cameron and I decided, why don't we do, because at the time we were also having a hard time. We knew that, I don't know if it was that was it just too much work editing the show?
I think part of it was we had been working with an editor, and it wasn't turning around as fast as we wanted at the time. We were also having a little bit more trouble coordinating any kind of production is hard. And I know at the time Linda was doing some other acting jobs. She had a regular day job, so she was leaving the show. And so it was kind of just a good chance to have a fresh start.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I remember it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And so we decided to go with the half-hour format, call it Dr. Gangrene Presents, and host old TV shows like One Step Beyond and The Veil, and take the host bits that are in there on those shows out and instead put our own host bits into it. And it turned out to be a really fun show. The problem was at this time, the regulation of closed captioning came into play, which we had never had to worry about before this. But Mike said, "Hey, listen, the FCC rules now, everything has to be captioned." unless it has no repeat value, everything's got to be closed captioned. We can do it, but we can only air it once, which means we can't repeat anything. So you and I did, 46 episodes or so, and I was just getting burned out. And I said, Cameron, I think this is it, man. I think.
Yeah, I remember that being, especially towards the end, like even the back half of it. I think at a certain point it was like that was kind of the first time where we would show up and we would shoot 3 or 4 shows at a time. So we would have a month between from when we actually shot to put it all together. But at a certain point, it was like we were working weekly to get the show on the air, and it just keeping up the pace with just the 2 of us became hard. I had other stuff I wanted to make. I think you at the time were wanting to write more. So we kind of took a break, from that, once again, and kind of did some stuff together. But I mean, Dr. Gangrene never really went away as much as it was just like more personal appearances and more. You had the Horror Hootenanny, which you do every October, with Gino Royd and all those guys in the Creepy Cruds. I know there was other stuff going on, but it was like we kind of took a break from television, and reruns of the show were airing on NECAT of Dr. Gangrene Presents for forever and ever until we decided to go back with the new show, which was Dr. Gangrene Sanitarium. So I guess why not talk about how that all came together?
Yeah, sure. I do want to talk about the Hootenanny though. That's something that came about that was pretty cool, because back when I mentioned we were on the air and we were selling airtime to stay on the air, or to be on the air, right towards the end of it, we knew, hey, listen, we're having trouble finding sponsors, whatever. Gino came up with the idea. He said, why don't we do a concert? We'll do like a benefit concert, more or less, and we'll have a bunch of horror bands all come together, and we'll do it like a fundraiser free show. And so we did, and it was in July. It was this rock and roll concert in July, and it was it was at a place called the Runway that doesn't exist anymore. It was over on Briley Parkway. And it was cool. Debbie Rochon showed up at it because she was in town shooting something. So she was there, the actors, and it was a hoot. And then after the first year, it was so much fun. Gene said, why don't we just do it again next year? So we did, and we did, and we did. And now we've done it 16 years or something. So that's been a lot of fun, and something I look forward to every year. And we didn't get to do it this year because of the whole COVID thing. But what else did you ask me about? I forgot.
I would say, I mean, into Dr. Gangrene's Sanitarium, which is kind of, I guess, where we drop off into how that came together, and ultimately how you go from that to where we're at right now.
Yeah. So the sanitarium, I wanted to do another TV show. We took a break, like we said, after Dr. Gangrene Presents. I did write some more. I put a collection of short stories together, wrote those, published that. And at some point, I just said, no, I know what it was. It was my 20th anniversary was coming up. That's what it was. It was my 20th anniversary. And I mentioned online, hey, this year is my 20th anniversary. And Mike Hook, again, reached out to me and said, hey, Larry, we need to do something. We need to get the band back together, and give me a call. So I did. And he said, yeah, why don't we put you on all October? And there were 4 weeks in October last year. So we did 4 episodes. And I wanted to, again, brand it with something new, just because, it's something fresh. Let's give it a fresh start. So called it Dr. Gangrene Sanitarium. And we shot those 4 episodes. It was a lot of fun. And so a time slot opened at the station, and I said, I'll take it. So Saturday nights at 9 p.m., here I am. Been doing it all year long. Did 26 episodes so far, I think.
Yeah, I know it's kind of funny because I know when we did the stuff for the CW, I came back and did those 4 shows with you, and then in the interim, that's kind of where I had just came over to NECAT, and so we made those shows over there. But then at that point, I was like, I don't know, I got a lot going on, and you've knocked out I don't know how many shows this year, 20 plus. New episodes, which is all you, which I think is interesting too, because how things have changed, because it kind of started out with you and Chuck. Me and you did a number of things, and now you're kind of making the show, all by yourself there in your home. You're shooting it, you're editing it, you're putting it all together, and we're just here putting it on the air at this point. So it's kind of fun because I get to be a fan of the show again, and kind of get to, I get to see it first before everybody else, but I get to see new Dr. Gangrene in a way that I haven't been able to enjoy because I've been so in the middle of it. So that's been kind of fun for me.
Yeah, well, I do it with these this whole room full of cameramen that I have here, Right. But yeah, no, it's fun. And
Right on.
built a set here inside my house. In the past, when I started the show, Chiller Cinema, we shot in a shed, a literal work shed. Out when I bought the house, there was a shed outside, pretty good size, but small by TV studio standards for sure. And I built a set in that shed, and it's pretty amazing. But everybody who ever visited the set was like, wow, this is it, huh? They couldn't believe how small it is, but you can make it happen in the small space for
It
sure.
is pretty crazy. I know, just again from humble beginnings and saying you're still working, like I say, by yourself. You've always championed independent projects and independent filmmakers and things like that. Why do you think that making stuff DIY at home? Why do you enjoy that more than the way that I guess Hollywood puts stuff together?
It's creative freedom, I guess, more than anything else. You can do what you want, when you want, the way you want. And, I'm making episodes to please myself. And I think that's actually when you make a lot of the best stuff. But yeah, it's that creative freedom for sure.
Right on. So we're getting pretty close to the end here. I know one of the big things that we're showing this weekend is the world premiere of our new movie, Tales from Parts Unknown, which is going to air at 9 o'clock in your regular time slot. Talk to me a little bit about how that came together.
Yeah, Tales from Parts Unknown. So I wrote a anthology of short stories, like I mentioned. That was the title of my book, Dr. Gangrene's Tales from Parts Unknown, because one of the stories was called Parts Unknown. And I like to play on words. It's about a Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster who is made of unknown parts, obviously. So nice little double play on words. But you had been making movies and you made a feature and some short films. You really liked one of the stories in that book, and you said, can I adapt that? How about if I adapt your story into film form? And I was like, yeah, for sure. That sounds great. And then you had an idea for another story. You shot to me and said, hey, would you write a script for this? I got this idea. I was like, sure. So I wrote you a script for it. And then I wrote, at some point you're like, let's do an anthology. Why don't we do an anthology film? One of the two of us said, why don't we put this together and have Dr. Gangrene host it? And so we just took the title from the book, and that's where that all came about. It was just a collaboration between the two of us. And one of the stories is based on something from the book and other things that I've written as well.
So one of the things that we always like to ask is what's making you feel good this Friday? So this is going to be the Friday before Halloween. What's one thing outside of the marathon and outside of the movie and all that stuff? What's one thing that you're looking forward to that's making you feel good on Friday?
Oh man, absolutely Halloween. It's the following day. It's the day before Halloween. It's Halloween Eve. I'm taking the day off from work, as I do every year. It's funny, every year at work they have a big costume contest, and this year they're having a pumpkin carving, and I don't ever see any of that because I take the day off to enjoy it for myself. I've always had a rule from the day one that I started the show, Halloween's my day off. If you would think this is the day when Dr. Gangrene will be the busiest with personal appearances and this and that, it's like, no, I'm not working on Halloween. Halloween's for me, it's for my family. So that's 100% what makes me feel good on Friday.
Well, I love it. That's pretty much all the time that we have here for Feel Good Fridays. You can watch Dr. Gangrene's Halloween Marathon starting right after this show, airing all Halloween weekend. You can catch Dr. Gangrene Sanitarium every Saturday night on the NECAT network on Arts Channel 9 at 9 p.m. Larry, thanks so much for coming on the show, and happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody. Everybody stay safe. Wear your masks.